right, I'll start recording now. We
Okay.
I guess all of you folks listening in, you're not going to hear all of our riveting side convo from earlier, but um,
Oh no. We'll miss out on all the exciting job opportunities they're missing out on.
yeah, um, yeah, no other dialysis technicians coming down the pipeline now. Okay, so you were reading a little bit about the game. Did you have a chance to look over that write-up I sent out a little bit
I
earlier
did
today?
it. I actually filled it out.
Oh, the consent form as well.
Oh, I didn't see the write-up. I did do the consent form. What is the other thing you sent?
So I sent the core rulebook in that info tab, and I also sent a little write up I made to introduce the system in the game, and then I also included a source book for the setting, if you want to know a little bit about the lore of New England.
Because I don't know much other than Salem witch trials type stuff. That's about as deep as my history on New England type. Okay, so
no sweat. It's all in that source book if you want to know the vampire situation in New England, in Boston.
And that's the Vampire Swan Song Boston by Night one you have?
Yeah, it's they made like a video game. Like they make a lot. The company makes like certain side video games.
Yeah, I was actually looking at a video. They have like 6 video games based off of Vampire the Masquerade or something like that.
Yeah, they got a whole bunch. Bloodline. I recommend LA or Bloodlines. That one's like the classic. I actually think Swan Song is a very bad game. Like I think it's very cringy, but I really like the setting in that source book. So, might not really tie into that video game at all. But, yeah. So, reading through the core rulebook, did you got a good idea about the different factions and sort of the general lay of the land?
Yeah, pretty much. Not pretty much, but I definitely touched on some of the important stuff and was looking at like different clans and stuff like that. I have actually listened to a podcast. What was it called? It was Bits Before Crits, and they do a bunch of like non-core, like, Pathfinder or D&D. They do like the Call of Cthulhu and Vampire the Masquerade stuff. And they did a mini arc with Vampire the Masquerade that was really fun. So I've sort of been introduced to it.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so I knew that it was D10 system, and sort of kind of like the rules on that.
Right, yeah, it's all D10s. It's different mechanically. I can add you to. I just made a quick Discord. If you want to take a look at the character sheet.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, let me give you an invite link.
Definitely have an idea of the character that I want to create.
Yeah. Yeah, shoot. Lay it on me.
Oh, you want to get so definitely. Like I was reading through, I think the one that struck me the most was the House of the Roses, the the Talador, I think.
The Toreador.
The Toreador, yeah. So I was like, originally I was like, okay, so, this old vampire who has lived kind of different, like, celebrity lives, like, throughout history. Like, maybe they were a Shakespearean actor in one thing, and, then they go underground for a little bit, and they pop up, and they were a Hollywood starlet in, like, the era of the silver screen, and, kind of went underground, and now they're ready to be, like, a Because this kind of, the one you're doing is going to take place in kind of like modern times, huh? Like this day and age.
Yeah. Right. So the game will take place in 2024, our time, in Boston and New England. Though I'm open to traveling elsewhere. So, yeah, and that makes sense to have like different covers throughout the years. You're Undying, right?
Yeah.
So you're thinking a bit of a thespian.
Yes, thespian spy. That's I was looking for the thing, but that's what the archetype was, I think.
That could be very interesting.
Yeah, really someone who like really dealt in, celebrity and the high social status, and maybe kind of had a place in the Camarilla. That's what I'm saying. Very high status.
Here, let me jump through this little write-up I wrote up and talk about some talking points. So,
absolutely.
Just info on the game. So it's set in our world, and you're going to be playing as a kindred, or a vampire, and you are dead. You were alive once, but now you're not. Maybe you were even a good person, but there's only so good of a person you can be when you need to drink human blood to keep yourself going. So a lot of vampires grapple with their humanity. And in this world where vampires are real, there's a lot of things that are real. Werewolves are real, ghosts are real, list goes on. But in the background of all of this, there's like a secret society of vampires who, above all else, rule number one is keeping their whole existence a secret.
Right, and that's the masquerade.
Right, and the vampires are pulling the strings in society. Have a lot of positions of power, and there's a lot of wars over turf and sectarian wars that occur. Just kind of, we never see it because it all gets cleaned up, but a lot of conflict going on. That's the general gist of the game. Yeah, there's the Camarilla, you already mentioned. That's the main faction. The main faction of vampires that kind of control society at large. But there's a couple other factions that you can read about, such as the Anarch movement. Those are kind of more modern vampires that like technology. The Camarillas kind of against technologies. You're very conservative, very traditional. Anarchs are a little more modern. Kind of don't really like the whole rules thing. There's the Sabbats. There's organized groups of hunters, the Second Inquisition, vampire hunters. It's a whole thing.
Right.
But you also saw that there's different clans of vampires. So clans are basically like this world's version of race and class. It's the analog for D&D. There's no levels in this system. Like, you just really earn experience points per session. And then you can slowly, add points to your character in different stats and skills. But you play as a different clan member, and they all have certain dispositions, defining characteristics and powers. And what those derive from is that they are the bloodlines of certain not founding, but very early generation vampires. The whole structure of the vampire world's pretty feudal, and a lot of that's dictated by what generation of vampire you are. So every time a vampire is embraced, when they get turned into a vampire, they are of a generation higher than their sire, and are a little weaker. So every generation's a little weaker than the one that came before. And most of the vampire clans today all have an ancestor of the third generation. But most vampires that are around today are pretty much between the 10th and 13th generation. And yeah, different. Any questions so far?
No, I was just I was reading a little bit about like the whole Curse of Cain and the third generation. One of my questions was going to be like, what are the parameters as far as generation goes that you were going to set for us, I guess?
Right. So the core rulebook, I think this game will generally adhere, since it's a first game for a lot of folks, adhere to the core rulebook. The core rulebook really recommends playing between the 10th and 13th generations of vampires. So that way, no one's too powerful right off the bat. Because once you're an older generation, things are just so easy. You've been in power for so long. There's kind of like sorts of like time periods in which you can generally aim your character to be of a certain generation. But it's kind of nebulous. It's whenever the sire wants to embrace their child. But typically, vampires of the 12th and 13th generation were braced either within the last 15 years and are still learning the ropes, or could have been embraced between 1940 through about 15 years ago. Vampire embraced within the last 15 years are known as childer, and then vampires embraced within the last since 1940 generally are known as neonates. They've been vampires for a few decades, kind of know the ropes. And then the older generation vampires you can play in this for the core rulebook are ancilli, which are generations roughly 10 and 11, and were embraced between the years 1780 through 1940. As a general rule.
Okay.
I could be open to a little bit of wiggle room on the years. That's just kind of a general guideline. But yeah, different. If you play as a childer, a neonate, or an ancilla, you start with like, the older you start as, the more like XP you kind of start with. More blood potency, meaning like how strong you basically are. But I know if you do start as an ancilli, you also start with more flaws, and you have less humanity, as time has kind of worn that away.
Okay.
Did you get my invite to the game in Discord?
Yeah. Yes, I did.
Okay. If you join that, you can jump in, and I think you might be able to look at a sample character sheet. But yeah, you kind of read through the different vampire clans. I'll just say for the people listening to the recording, there's some clans that I don't really recommend for the first go around, but some of the clans that you could probably play as are Ventru, which are, like I said, all the clans kind of have stereotypes. So the Ventrue are kind of the rich, aristocratic sort of leader kind of types. And each clan has different sort of powers. Bruja are pretty rebellious and countercultural sort of folks. They're like kind of grunts. Very blue collar. Kind of punky. And then Toreador, as Zach's interested in, are sort of like diva sort of types. They're pretty or how would you say?
Yeah, aesthetic, all into the aesthetic and beauty and stuff like that. They're the hedonists, the socialites.
Right, exactly. Right. Kind of a little perverted, like, but yeah. And then the Nosferatu, they're all like have some ugly disfigurements. They wear their vampiric beast on the outside. And they're pretty reclusive types who kind of hide in the shadows. But they're very smart, they're very intelligent, and they like to spy a lot. The Tremere are basically witches, magic users. They're vampires that use blood magic. They're pretty aloof. Gangrel, that's the clan that really is into... they're the closest with like their primal beast, so they're very animalistic and sort of wanderers. They kind of like to fuck off and do their own thing. Malkavians are, to a fault, or to a T, they're all pretty much mentally insane. But they have certain latent psychic abilities. Yeah, they're very crazy. And then a lot of other clans that I don't recommend for a first go-around. But the other option would be to play as a caitiff, which is a clanless vampire. So they either didn't inherit clan disciplines from their sire, or they were sired from a clanless vampire. And they're generally pretty discriminated against in this world. Thin Bloods are vampires of the 14th through 16th generations that they don't have a clan, and the blood is so weak that they're essentially half human, half vampire. They don't have to sleep during the day. But they're so socially disadvantaged and often viewed with outright scorn by other vampires, that they're pretty banned. It would be a pretty big detriment for you to play as a Thin Blood. But yeah, other-ish things with this game. Let's talk about how this game would be different from our D&D game. So the roleplay is a lot more emphasized in this game compared to D&D. Whereas D&D is like, I feel like combat's kind of built into the mechanics of the game, in a very hard way. In Vampire the Masquerade, the combat exists, but it's a lot more narrative, and it's not about positions on the battle map and like 30 feet range. It's nothing like that. It's all about just kind of talking it through as it makes sense, and there are mechanics for it, but it's a lot more loosey-goosey, and it's also a lot deadlier than D&D. As vampires, you are a little like a gunshot's not going to kill you. You have a lot more resistance than that, but when you take damage, you take damage, and it lingers for a long time. So it's the kind of thing you got to be very careful about, or at least think about. There also exists in the game social combat, so mechanics for in your dealings with other vampires or other characters in the world. Just mechanical ways for you to persuade and coerce and manipulate against other folks. Because there's no map, personally, I think I can plan for this a lot more regularly. Also, because there's an established world lore that I can lean on, I expect that I could probably pump out a game every single week if there was the interest for it. Though I would also be happy to continue playing on our every other week schedule. I'm very interested in this game because it's all very roleplay heavy. I am potentially interested in playing with webcam on, just to convey body language and add facial expressions into the mix here, if there is the interest for that. And in doing that, it's been recommended to me wearing different, like just even one article of clothing, or even like if you want to costume up in character, it can really get you into character. For this game, I'd like to also check in with everyone pretty much every session to make sure the game is moving in a direction that everyone's happy about, and that if there's any sorts of things people want to really do in the world, that we get those done. And yeah, other housekeeping, I guess, before I really go into the character sheet with you, Zach. So, I would give, for this game, I would give a certain amount of XP based upon how the quality of the role-playing each session. Between 1 to 5 XP given out every single session. I in the write-up, I wrote kind of like the guideline for that. But, and if you miss out on XP, like if you don't attend session, that's okay. Because the getting stronger, I guess so to say, in this game is not as important, really, compared to D&D, which has levels, you know. Like, you can be very underleveled, but in Vampire the Masquerade, it doesn't really affect too many things. Like, you can still make waves in the world as a fledgling vampire with no experience. And then, I also would recommend, if you would like to learn more about the lore, because there's a lot of lore involved with this system, you could learn it before we play, try and do your study, but you'd always be welcome to play as just a new vampire. If you kind of want to be like fed the lore as we go through the game, that could be a lot easier for some new folks.
Yeah, I think a lot of us will be pretty new, but
yeah. And but it also makes sense for you all to really, once we get started, get moving on this in earnest, to really plan out your characters together. Whether you know each other very well, just to talk about the kind of connections that you all have with each other, or with other vampires in the world, and see how those stick and connect. Because you could all if you're gonna play as vampires, like pre-existing vampires, it could be pretty great to already be in a coterie, in a party together, essentially.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask you, because I couldn't remember the code, but the coterie is kind of what I was saying, like our group having an established bond already, because I really like that idea that we're, even though we probably haven't seen each other for however long, there's still that coterie, isn't it like we're bonded, sort of, through a group of ideals or something like that, even though we might not be from the same group, but it kind of bonds us and helps us keep our humanity.
Right, yeah, so, there's a lot of mechanics as far as, like, the group, but what the coterie is, it is the party, and typically, a coterie has the same... They're brought together by a similar motivation. You could have a coterie that's really a short-term group undertaking a certain task, or more often than not, they are lifelong companions, or like years-long companions who kind of work together and probably share the same domain, or share at least the same. They could have their own domains, probably, but they share a similar area. They share territory, and work together to help each other with their ambitions. Domain is a very important thing in this game. It's basically your turf, your feeding grounds, like the area that you control, that you're basically the lord of, so to speak. And that can range from somewhere pretty small as an apartment building, an apartment block, could be a city block, could be a college campus, it could be a park, and it could even be a small city or a small town. It really depends. The range on that depends on how powerful you are within your organization. But generally, you would be from the same sect. So you would all be members of the Camarilla. Or you might all be anarchs, right? If that makes sense.
Right.
So any questions as I've been going through that so far? Any thoughts?
No, I think you're pretty much covering all your bases for sure, and we'll probably get more into like lore and stuff like that as we go. So I'm good.
Yeah. Okay. And out of curiosity, how does the whole idea of playing over camera, how does that personally sound to you?
I don't mind playing over camera. I do think, you do miss out on like the physical reactions and all that, that comes along with playing in like a in-person campaign. So I would definitely be open to doing a vid, because sometimes it's really fun to see people's reactions, and this is going to be a game where who knows, it'd be kind of like missing out on the whole thing with Dick creating Gore Bloom. I would have loved to have seen everyone's reaction to that one.
I know, you would have seen my jaw, like my whole mouth kind of like, what? Oh my god, he's tearing apart the boy.
Yeah, you would have seen me absolutely just hands and face, just like, Jesus Christ.
I think that could be very fun.
I think so too.
And another thing I don't think I mentioned is that your character motivation and ambition is pretty much the bread and butter of the game, and the relationships of that characters have with each other, with other NPCs in the world. That's like the meat and bones. So it's when you're thinking about your character, it's very important to probably think about, it's not like D&D where you're just like, we're going on a quest together, right? And not really getting into the motivations too much all the time. It's really, first and foremost, every decision you make, every action you take, it's in the pursuit of your ambition. How you react to other characters who stand in the way of that ambition, who might be able to help that ambition moving forward. That's how I would try and think about your character. Think about the one thing that they really want and what they'll do to get it. And if you fulfill an ambition, you can always have a new one. Desires are also a thing, and that's generally like what you want each session, which could be furthering your ambition, or it could be something as minor as I really need a car. Like I need to get from A to B.
Right.
And then, relationships. So when you're thinking about your character, I would really think about their connections, like who they care about, right? If they have any friends or potentially family out there. Certain mortals that kind of keep them grounded to their humanity. Maybe in your past life you had a partner. Maybe you disappeared and it's been 20 years since they've seen you, but you still keep an eye on them from the background and you still care about them. Or maybe you're a really old vampire and you still keep tabs on your descendants, your mortal descendants. So it's helpful to think about things like that. And also your connections with other folks in the world.
Right.
I think that's about the gist. Let's talk about the character sheet. Or do you want to learn a little more about Boston as a setting?
We go learn as Boston as a city, as you're kind of gonna the lay of the land.
Okay.
Because I'm from the South, not deep. Well, I guess kind of deep South down here in Texas. So.
Oh, where in Texas?
Right at the border of Louisiana and Texas, basically, near the right on the Gulf, almost.
Near, not far, around the Houston area, ish.
Yes, that's the next big town over.
I see. That's pretty cool. My dad's side, they're from Mobile, Alabama. So.
Okay.
And I grew up around Virginia, Miami, Maryland. I'm pretty southern as well, I would say.
But yeah, the most north I've been to Chicago once to visit a friend, but other than that, like I've never really been north before, so.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'll talk about, I'm studying it in Boston because I live in Maine now. And I'm pretty familiar with Boston as a city, with New England as a region. So, I'm happy with this game to really try and make that area come alive for you guys. Though I definitely recommend doing your research on the area.
Right.
So, if you look at that PDF that I sent you, the Boston by Night sourcebook, it talks about the vampire situation going on in the greater Boston area. And so, I'll give you a brief lore spit. So, the region of New England has had vampires pretty much since North America was founded. packs of werewolves, known as lupines, were pretty rampant back in the day in the region, and they still exist today in the rural areas of New England. And so in the very early history of the colony, the vampires coming to the New World, had to contend with the werewolves, who are they're pretty much enemies with each other.
Kills all this time.
Yep. But that's really kind of in the background these days, as the vampires have kind of carved out territory for themselves in the New World. So the general gist is that, just as the revolution existed amongst mortals, so did it also exist in the vampire world. And it also existed it lasted for far longer, almost up until the present day in New England. About 100 years after independence, a British contingent of the Camarilla. So the Boston Camarilla kind of established itself, the Patriot Camarilla, and then the British kind of came back about 100 years later, and really took control of Boston and New England. And all of New England was kind of, for well over 100 years, was in open war, fighting for control of the region between the Patriot Camarilla sect, like microsect, the British Camarilla. You had the Lupines here and there. You also had a group known as the Sabbat, which is a rival to the Camarilla. Whereas the Camarilla believe very much in secrecy and preserving the masquerade and kind of ruling from the shadows. The Sabbat are a group of vampires who really think, they're a lot more monstrous than the Camarilla, and they rule by they just kill humans left and right. Don't really care about the masquerade so much, and have very brutal tactics. It's just a different sect of vampires, and they don't get along with the Camarilla at all.
So basically, just a bunch of extremist vampires, elitists.
Right. Who see, I guess, whereas the Camarilla sort of pretend to be human, right? Like, they have a feudal society, and they kind of go through the motions, ruling over humans, which are also known as kind. Yeah. The Sabbat, we're monsters. We're gonna rule like monsters. That's pretty much the difference. But yeah, so huge war, and then that's not even to talk about a group known as the Giovanni, or the later known as the Hikata, which are a clan, like a necromantic kind of clan of vampires, generally from the Giovanni family of Italy. Pretty much all members of their clan are from that. But it's all in the lore book if you want to read a lot more. Anyways, Boston for a rather long time was ruled under the British Camarilla by Prince King Quintin, who was a batshit crazy Malkavian that believed he was the reincarnation of King Arthur. And his personal bodyguard were all named after Arthurian knights.
Like the Round Table.
Right. And they were like basically LARPing Camelot and shit like that. And Prince King Quentin was really a puppet for a lot of more powerful members of the British Camarilla who really didn't want to have that front-facing seat. But, and he really couldn't exert a lot of will of his own. Neither here nor there for now, but eventually, skipping over a lot of stuff, the Sabbat one day disappeared. They in what in this world is known as like Gehenna, like the end of the world, right? So there's long, like in vampire mythos, there's the belief that there's going to be a huge war in the Middle East, like fighting against like the very most ancient vampires for the fate of the world. I guess it was about time. Suddenly, overnight, all the Sabbat, this is about 10 years ago now, Sabbat just disappeared. They left North America in droves. They ravaged their way through Portland, Maine, and took boats. Like, they didn't really kill other vampires, but they just killed a lot of humans. They food for the trip, and they stole boats, and they fucked off. And that left a huge power vacuum. And everyone was very baffled by it. And eventually, like just a couple months later, the same thing happened to a lot of the older members of the British Camarilla. In this world, there's something known as the Beckoning, which is the call to fight in the Great Gehenna War. And it really only affects, which is like, yeah, like I said, it's like an endless war in the Middle East. And once a vampire gets old enough, they start to hear that beckoning, thinking they have to go fight over there, and are compelled to leave. So a lot of senior members of the British Camarilla started leaving, and it left a huge power vacuum just virtually overnight. Whereas that Patriot Camarilla took back Boston and is still kind of reestablishing themselves in the area. So it's very much a region that's still in flux, if that makes sense, with a lot of young vampires in power. Any questions about any of that so far?
No, not yet. I'm good.
Okay. I definitely recommend reading that source. There's
yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
There's a lot of lore.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of meat and bones to sink into. And what's great about this, that is going to really help with my burnout, is I don't have to literally create all the world's lore. There's a lot to draw from, which I like.
I think, especially because I'm really leaning towards like a 10th generation vampire, so having all this, like reading through this is important, because they probably would know this as an older vampire, but as like a younger, newer generation of vampire, maybe not having to know so much of it, but discovering as you go, you kind of have that choice which one you want to do.
Right, like if you really want to delve into the lore, by all means play an older vampire. For folks listening to the recording as well. But if you really want, I understand there's a lot of lore, and if you kind of want to learn this stuff as we go, I would very much recommend playing as a very recently embraced vampire, still learning the ropes. So that's, I guess, a broad overview of the setting. But also backdrops in the world. There's we're kind of in the midst of the Second Inquisition, which is the humans, essentially like a quick lore thing. is that the Nosferatu, who are basically like all these like spies and folks, they they have their big underground network. Sorry, I just read something.
Okay.
Yeah, so she, they kind of had a big underground, like, they were communicating with each other on the dark web, like Shrek, on a network called ShrekNet. But human intelligence agencies wised up to it and basically rediscovered that vampires are real. And so there's been basically a huge global offensive by a lot of intelligence agencies, by the Vatican, to kill off vampires. And so it's kind of a big concern in the vampire world right now, is really keeping a low profile. And the Camarilla have all but banned technology and the internet. Now, there's also a lot of groups of vampires that tried to rebel against the Camarilla. Anarchs, kind of like self-ruling vampires that don't really follow the global conspiracy. They're generally okay with technology, but they're very decentralized as an organization. I don't know what the tangent for that came from, but yeah, that's another thing that's ongoing in the world, is a global hunt to kill off vampires. But yeah, let's go on over and let's look at this character sheet.
Yeah.
So, are you able to see a character sheet?
Yeah, I'm looking at one right now.
Okay, so, yeah, let's just go over the basics here. So you can put your name for your character's name, the Chronicle, which would be Vespers. That's the running name I'm going with so far.
Any particular reason, or is that kind of like a...
It looks cool.
Okay.
Oh, there's Gio.
Hello.
Hey,
Hi.
How's it going?
Doing good. I was just out someone that just got back home right now.
Okay, you're good, man. I'm just gonna keep explaining as I've been explaining to Zach, but I've been recording, so I will definitely post the recording so you can see what you missed. But we're looking over the character sheet right now in the Roll20. If you want to look at that as well.
Okay.
We're just getting started with that. But the core rule book, the setting source book, and the write-up for the game, all that is in the info tab in Vespers. It's in the Discord.
Yeah, in the info. And then there was a consent form as well. I didn't know. What was that for?
Oh, so I think for this game, this deals with a lot of personal...
Oh, that... Okay, yes. I saw stuff about... So, okay. Got it.
So I just want to make sure I know everyone's boundaries for this kind of game.
No, that's actually really cool. Yeah, I saw the consent form. Okay. Because I was looking up some stuff about Vampire the Masquerade because I wanted to get myself a little bit more informed, and I saw that, like, in the rule book, like, the beginning thing, the first thing it says.
Yeah, good to check in with folks on that. I'm glad that you're interested. I know we never really got to play your D&D character, so I do apologize for that.
Hey, no worries.
It's
good. It's a new system I want to explore.
I really think this is going to be the kind of game that, like, Victor is, like, going to be, like, hella into.
I would say so, yeah, I think.
Oh, I can almost predict what Victor is going to go straight for. But nothing is going to go straight for a Nosferatu.
not to. Interesting. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I
think he really likes playing those warped characters that are physically. I don't know.
Okay, I'm looking at the character sheet too.
For some reason, I feel like he would play Tremere, but maybe that's just me. I don't know.
I'm gonna play Vlad from Hotel Transylvania. I'm gonna play Drac.
Jonathan, hey, my daughter.
Jonathan, you were banking with that. Yeah, that's gonna be me.
I love it.
I'm here for that.
But yeah, I talked a lot about that kind of stuff. I'll post the video. Anything I should mention? One thing I do want to check in with for this game. I'm thinking about using webcam to get facial expressions and body language into the mix. Is that something you'd be into? In theory?
Yeah, no, I think so. I think in theory, I'll just need to work on like a better lighting situation. But no, I think I can make that work.
Oh yeah, me too, for sure. I don't anticipate really getting started with this. Just I know it's holiday time, and I'm gonna go to El Salvador come January, but I think we could, if everyone is amenable to it, I think we could try something. Well, we'll have to look at everyone's ability, but I'm hoping we can get that in pretty soon. Next,
I feel like we would need to have a group chat before we even start, kind of like getting on the same page as far as like the whole like what group we're going to be a part of, and kind of like having those like backstory connections already set up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw something called like, because we're all playing as it said you in the vampire. We are all playing as vampires, correct?
Yep, you're all.
That's like the okay.
You're all dead.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I agree.
How much of the lore are you familiar with, Gio?
Not a lot. No, I just saw like going over the game, like how it can be, like the gameplay of it. Nothing much about the lore.
Okay.
Except no.
I'll mention to you that there is a lot of lore, which is great to work with, but I know it can be very intimidating as a new player. So, one option, a very perennial option for folks that are new, is that you're always welcome to play as a very, very recently embraced, like a turned vampire. And that can kind of help you learn the lore as you go. Unless you feel comfortable with doing your studying in the meantime.
Okay. If I did, where would is that what posted as well, or do I have to look at that up myself? Is there?
So there's a fair amount in the core rulebook, and then I put in the source book for the local setting. But there's a lot of definitely. I think the best gateway to kind of expect what this game might look like, and to kind of get lore tidbits. I posted it in the chat. There's a game called LA by Night.
I heard of that. Yes.
I would certainly recommend, like, if you listen to that kind of shit at work or on your drives, I definitely recommend listening to that. That can probably give you a nice lay of the land.
Okay.
But you can also read up on it. I think there's also another podcast. What's it called? Lore by Night that you can look into. It's some guy. I think it kind of sounds a little cringy, but his voice. But it kind of like goes over things in a more structured way.
Okay.
But anyways, we were talking about the character sheet. I'll jump right back into that. And I think you should be able to see that from there.
Yep.
I guess I do have a question about that. Because first it says sire, right where we're picking up. Will you be picking our sires, or will you have like a list for us to pick from?
Nope, that is all up to you guys. You all will have, unless you would like me to pick your sire. Like if you would like to have it be unknown or a mystery. That might be compelling if you're a newly made vampire. But like if you've been around for a while and you have a good relationship, or most vampires have bad relationships with their sires. Like they kind of, maybe they get along a little. Some people they get along very well, but there's always that notion of this guy killed me, turned me into a monster. I kind of hate them. But yeah, up to you. If you want to make it, you can choose. There are characters, I guess, in the meta plot you can always choose from. We'll have to talk about that, but there's options in the core rulebook to tie yourself into the world lore, like character stat kind of options, like, or perks, I guess. But you can always just like completely come up with it from scratch, and that's okay. But yeah, Geo, the system here is it's a D10 system, so you just roll a bunch of D10s.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at the character sheet and you see like there's like do you see the bubbles that have like sort of like fill in the blank dots?
Yeah.
So those are like dice pools. So as you get more experience, you can add more. You can buy dots in different bubbles, or buy powers, that kind of stuff. And each bubble represents one dice, one D10 that you can roll. And for most rolls, you will roll a combination of 2 bubbles. You'll roll a stat and a skill combined, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, if there's a situation like you really want to pry open a car door, right? And there's a chance of failing, maybe you would roll. If you want to brute force it, you could roll strength and maybe larceny, right? To break in. Or, so you would roll all the dice that you have in strength and all the dice that you have in larceny. Or it could be like you really want to convince someone about a plan that you have. So you might roll manipulation as well as persuasion, right? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And then to succeed in a roll, each dice, like a dice counts as 1 success if it is a 6 or higher. 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, 6 or higher. And a 0 counts as 10 on a D10. So. Yeah. So, there's typically a threshold, like, so for each check, like if you want to convince someone and you're going to do manipulation and persuasion, maybe the difficulty is you need to get 3 successes. So you'll roll, maybe you have 3 dice in manipulation and 3 in persuasion. So we'll roll that. So I had 2 6, dice rolled. Well, hold on. Why did it only do 5 dice? That's. Is that right? Well, I'll have to look into it more. It's saying we're only rolling 5 dice. I guess you subtract 1, it looks like. I guess I think to roll in general, to make a roll, you have to have at least 1 in the skill. Typically. Yeah.
I think it is rolling the 5 for the normal one. Then does the hunger die add it as well for a total of 6 die rolled?
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh right. That's a good point. Thanks for reminding me. The hunger dice. Yeah. So yeah, that's the whole deal. There's a whole mechanic called hunger.
Yeah.
And that ranges from 0 to 5, right? And to lose points of hunger, you have to feed.
Yeah.
Every time you have a hunger, it turns one of your dice into a hunger dice, which increases your chance of getting a bestial, like a critical fail, right?
Yeah.
Like, and you could frenzy and go crazy. But the only way to get to 0 hunger is to kill someone, like to drink them to death. But you can sate your hunger to 1 by feeding off of someone and not killing.
Okay.
But yeah, I
have a question. Does draining someone to death give... I think when I was listening to the podcast, I said, doesn't draining someone to death take like away from your humanity or something like that?
Yeah, well... So the loss of your humanity, typically... It depends on your convictions. And it also, like, your personal convictions, right? So, if that's against your character's convictions, then it could. And then also, when we start the game, we'll have, like, a coterie convictions, right?
Okay.
So, like, you will decide as a group what is right and what is wrong, right? But but generally, yes, you could be at threat of losing humanity, especially if it was like very needlessly killing someone. If you killed someone like in self-defense, right? That, depending on your convictions, that might not make you lose humanity. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, for that first roll, Persuasion, we rolled 6 dice, one of them hunger, and it was a hunger success. So we had 3 successes. And one of them was a 10, which is... I think you have to have 2 successes to get a critical. Two successes of 10 to make it a critical. But I think actually reading at this, because one of those was a 10, and that hunger die was a success. That would mean you have a messy critical. No, just kidding. That would just be a regular success. Yeah. But yeah.
Is that when you get like a 10 on the hunger die?
A 10 on the hunger die, and yes, if you have a 10 on the hunger die, and you also have a normal 10, it's a messy critical. Which is like, basically, like, you succeed, but at a cost. And then,
so you want to get low on the hunger die, or...
Well, it's good if you succeed on a hunger die, but if it's a 10, like you get a critical success on the hunger die, then yeah, that's not great.
It's like what is a failure?
So a failure is... I think a critical failure is if one of your dice, if you have no successes, right? A critical failure is if you have 0 successes and you have, and one of your successes is a 1, and one of your hunger dice is a 1. I'll refresh on that, but I'm pretty. That's the general gist. Like, you can critical succeed, critical fail, and have a messy critical success. But yeah, in that first example, you would pass because that's 3 successes, and the difficulty was 3. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, health is... Let's go to health. Is, you have 3 types of damage that you can take. So in the example here, we've got 5 health. So when you take initial damage, that is bashing damage. So, like a slash. Now, here's the thing. Vampires, they slake bashing damage. Like, that's like minor damage. Like there's superficial damage, right? Yeah. Well, I'm getting my head of myself. Okay, so look at the health. We've got 5 points. That's all your health points, and that's determined, I believe, by you get 3 plus, I think, your strength and stamina, I believe. I believe so. I'll have to relook, but so when you take it, the first level damage is superficial damage. So that's minor damage, and that's indicated by a slash, right? If that makes sense. So that's like the initial level of damage you take. Minor, really cosmetic wounds, but like, yeah. And what you would do is, if you would get so many points of damage based upon how many successes someone gets on an attack against you, right? So, say someone hurts you and they deal 3 superficial damage. You'll click 3 of the boxes and have 3 slashes in them. And you would take all damage that you take, or like when you take damage, you'll keep taking superficial until all your health dots are gone. And now then any additional superficial damage that you take will count as aggravated damage, which is denoted by the X. And you can take so much aggravated damage, as many as you have boxes, and then you go next to lethal damage. And once you hit 0 health, like your lethal damage takes away all your health, as a vampire, you enter into a state called torpor, which is like you basically you are comatose.
Okay.
And it takes so long to come out of torpor. Like, it takes time to heal from torpor. But you can take more than just superficial damage off the bat. You could take, like, if you get hit by sunlight, for example, you could start immediately with aggravated damage. Like, skip superficial and just go straight to aggravated. So you'll take you'll go straight to an X. And you'll skip the slashes.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Okay, that's generally health. So, it takes a lot to actually get to 0. There's more health than you think. And like every day, you can kind of heal like a little bit of your health. But it takes a long time it could take multiple days to get back to full health.
Does feeding help that any, or?
Oh, I'm sorry?
does feeding help get you back to full health?
Yeah, it can help you regain health faster. Like, so the way it works is you when you try and regain health, you have to roll a hunger check. And whenever you use your vampire powers, you roll a hunger check. So, and if you fail on a hunger check, you gain another point of hunger. So if you want to heal health like once a day, right? Or you can try to heal some of your aggravated damage, but you have to roll a hunger check. And obviously, the more hunger you have, that's bad. You're more likely to go feral, to frenzy, on a fail. But when you drink someone's blood, you can lower your hunger, which is good. So yeah, what they call that is a rouse check. If you see that button that says rouse, you can click that. So I had 0 successes. So because if I failed doing that, I would take another point of hunger. Point of hunger. Point of hunger.
Oh lord.
Yeah. As you level up, or as you gain experience, you'll be more successful in your rouse checks. Blood potence is affects how many dice you roll for a rouse check. Yeah. Yep. So for a lot of vampire powers, you have to make a rouse check. Some of them you don't. If you have to make a frenzy check, so you're going back to your willpower. You make a willpower roll to see if you frenzy, or if you're able to remain composed. And it's a combined roll between your frenzy and your level of humanity. So that was a critical success. 4 successes and 2 critical dice.
Yeah.
So you would not frenzy in that situation generally. But as you lose willpower, that gets a lot harder to succeed. So you can spend willpower to re-roll a dice. Like, so if you... Or you can re-roll up to 3 dice. So maybe you really want to do that persuasion, and you failed. You could burn a willpower to re-roll up to 3 of your dice in your dice pool. But then you lose that willpower. And generally, you regain all your willpower at the end of the session.
Okay, so it's session-based.
Yep. Yep. Ambition, desire, predator type. If you look up top. So, your vampires have different preferred ways in which they like to feed. So, generally, when you can feed in other ways if you need to, but it is not really that satisfying. The blood is the best when you hunt in your predator type. Let's pull that up. Predator type. Oh, crud. Yeah, so predator types. Like, there's a bunch of examples. Like, there's a bagger, which is like someone who likes to procure cold blood, like from bagged blood, rather than hunting. There's consensualists, which only try to feed on willing victims, which is inherently kind of a masquerade breach. But so you want to kind of keep that a secret.
Mm-hmm.
Some people only feed on animals. Some kindred exclusively feed on sexual partners. There's a whole list. And then some, alley cats who like to just like overpower victims in the dark alleys. Yeah. There's a couple more not in the core rulebook that I'd be willing to share as well to make okay. Like I know there's one for Modern Knights, which is like someone who exclusively like feeds off of like DoorDash people.
Yeah.
Oh,
which is
what? When I heard Modern Knight, I thought you meant like.
Oh yeah,
like
I don't know.
Other people who do crime, like steal a woman's handbag, you die.
Oh.
Just cause, I mean, it works.
Yeah. Wait, I think I'm a little confused, but yeah, there's different types. But yeah, I don't know if I had mentioned Geo. This is modern day, like 2024.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's also like Osiris, which is like they're like
I think that's what I'm gonna go with.
Like celebrity of a microculture, a minor celebrity, or maybe you're a cult leader, pastor. That you have your. Yep, that's cool. Anyways, any other questions so far?
No.
No, I don't really have any right now. I think except so right now. So so what you're saying of that would be what under that you put that under predator?
Yep. What type of predator you are? Yeah.
Okay.
And you can obviously feed through other means, but that's your go-to.
Yeah. No, I see what you mean.
So do you get like more points if you feed your preferred way, or?
I think it's mostly a role-playing thing, but I need to check. There might be a mechanical benefit. I don't really remember at the moment. Let me take a quick look. Okay, so not even.
Like it's mostly just
It doesn't. Okay.
narrative.
It doesn't mandate your behavior in the game, but it's your modus operandi. You know.
Okay.
And like I said, I don't think you were there for that part yet. But the way, like, you get XP at the end of you only get like a little XP, but at the end of every single session that you use to buy points. And I will give out XP based upon how well the group role plays. Like 1 through 5 XP. So if you role-playing your characters quite well, like feeding into your predator type, that could net you more XP.
Okay.
Yeah, and then there's Chronicle Tenets, which are basically like I was mentioning earlier, like kind of the rules you all set, we as a group set. When you break one of those rules, like maybe we make the rule no killing innocents, and you kill an innocent person, then you need to do a humanity check.
Okay.
Or you could lose humanity. And once you get to zero humanity, you're like a mindless beast. Like 1 or 2 humanity, like you're barely sentient. It's crazy. It's almost like what is it? Insanity in Call of Cthulhu. It's similar to that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. And you can gain humanity. It's just it takes a long time. It's kind of hard. Touchstones, convictions, yeah, that's like your connections to people, mortals that you care about, or like other vampires. Yeah. Typically the touchstone is like the human world. Things that ground you in your humanity. And then yeah, your personal convictions. Clan Bane, that's like when you fail a frenzy check, you often will fall victim to your clan's bane, which is like you could read about that in the core rulebook, but it's like Bruja have a predisposition to like rebel and be defiant by nature. So if they like fail their frenzy check, like I think mechanically it's like they have a bunch of negative modifiers until they directly like defy or disobey someone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, in Toreador, at their bane is what I was reading is if they fall prey to their bane, it's like they're distracted by something beautiful, and they're are pretty much useless until this and that.
Yep, and then you have potency, like a lot of notes for this stuff. You can put more character details in this page, like your true age, your birth date. You can put all your a lot of your backstory stuff you can put in here. That's pretty much the gist. I feel like. Yeah. Any other questions so far? I haven't mentioned the different types of plot hooks we can start with. But do you have any other questions before that?
No, I'm good.
I had one question. On the sheet where it says like when you're filling it out, it says because I see something Chronicle Sire. Yeah, because earlier mentioned something about Sire. All those once we're full credit, all those would be filled out by the time we have our character sheet.
Yeah, a lot of it's in the recording earlier. But the Chronicle is like basically like the game.
Okay.
Yeah, so like the way the Chronicle is divided, you have like I guess like this game they really like their nomenclature. So each session is called a chapter, and every kind of like season or like story arc is like is a story, and then every game is a chronicle, like campaign.
Got it. I get it.
And then the sire is the vampire who embraced you.
Who turned you?
Yeah. And usually, like sometimes a lot of vampires don't know their sire, but usually they have like whether they really like their sire or really hate their sire, they have like it's a very important connection.
Okay.
And then yes, just going through this, I mentioned it earlier, but really all the characters are fueled by like an overarching ambition. So like everything you do, like if you want your vampire to have an ambition, and like the way you interact with the world, with other players, it's all the decisions you make are tied to your ambition, and that will be the same for all the NPCs.
Got it.
Desire being what you want, like in the short term, like very short term. Yeah, just to help you like with your motivations. But yes, I guess you'll have to learn a little bit more about the lore maybe before you make a choice as a group. But I have 3 potential ways that we can start this game, and obviously we can change it up as we need to. But kind of like different like faction routes that you all could take. Um, so if you all play with the Camarilla, the main faction in Boston, like the area, like the main vampire faction, you're all members of the Boston Camarilla, and you share a neighborhood. Like your coterie shares a neighborhood or like a local area, maybe a stadium or whatever. Like is you as your local domain. And
Okay.
Yeah, and then the plot hook being the Prince of Boston, basically like your prince is willing to offer you all much larger turf in some of the one of the abandoned cities in New England, since the whole region was pretty much emptied out. If you do some dirty work for them in the Red Salon, which is basically a human trafficking network.
Okay.
And then we can still rope you in if you want to play as a fledgling there. Now an Anarch pathway, if you want to be independent of the Camarilla, I was thinking that you all could be a coterie living, like kind of ruling over a small city in New England. My thought was Portland, Maine, because once the Sabbat had raised through the city in 2013, it was pretty much free for the taking, and you all moved in and started ruling over it until nowadays, though, there's a lot of outside forces that are starting to push their way into the city, coming up from Boston, and then potentially other players, maybe Lupines, maybe the Second Inquisition. And then I also have thoughts on a start if you all want to be like newly turned vampires. Like you're all getting mass embraced, getting caught in the middle of a big battle. I'll let you all think about that. See what might be of interest to you.
Mm-hmm. I definitely think I have an idea of kind of what I'll be advocating for. I think I like hearing more about it. The Anarch.
The Anarch path.
The Anarch hook, especially for how I kind of want to play my character and what I kind of feel like what their ambition and desire is, and having heard that the Camarilla are like forbidding technology, I'm definitely leaning towards like Anarch.
That sounds good. And now I may make there a boss for you all in that city too. You all might not be the top dogs, but pretty high up there.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna probably stop recording soon unless you all have any other questions or thoughts.
I guess not so much questions or thoughts, so much as just kind of talking about maybe Geo. If you have kind of hearing what you've heard so far, if you have any ideas what you want to play.
Yeah, I think I will need a little bit. So with the lore, so the rule book that you sent, it is the core rule book. The other two things, what are those? Because the first one is not have access to it for some reason. I got send like an email or to get access.
Okay, let me try. If I remove I think the edit at the end might be. Let's see. Restricted. Anyone. Let me fix this.
I think in the rulebook sense, I kind of understand. It's just more like the lore of things and what I really would want to make as a character. I'm still a bit not I need to have to do some more look into before I can have a solid idea. Really, I understand. I think essentially how you play, but I just got the lore.
You should have access to that right up now.
Let's see. Okay. And then got it.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Now, as far as the lore goes, they might touch on it a little bit they probably do touch on it a little bit in the core rulebook. So what I sent in about the setting, the Boston by Night book, that's really the book on the info on the local area, but that's not really gonna really help you too much. You're just gonna see or it will be helpful for you, but not until you know what the Camarilla is, what the Sabbat is.
Yeah.
I think the best resource for learning that might be They do have source books. I'll pull those up. I will have to pirate them, but there are source books for the different factions that if you want to read into those.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
I also recommend those two podcasts, LA by Night and then
the
Lore by Night, will be very helpful. You'll pick it up as you go. But if you don't want to start with knowing all this lore, you can totally be new. And I can explain it to you in character.
Yeah. I think that might be the best bet. I think because I want to know what I need to know just to make my character, but I don't want to know too much.
Right. If you want to make a newly created vampire, you could really you basically don't need to know anything. I can expose you to the world pretty much just like you're learning it all for the first time.
Yeah, and in that case, I think that honestly might be what I'm gonna do. I think that's gonna be the best play. And in that case, because what if you need to when you play, so you have to have a clan, right?
Right. So
am I wrong in that?
So what I get? Okay, I see what you're saying. The only things I think you would need to know if you're going in completely blind, you would need to know what clan that you personally would like to play as mechanically.
Okay.
Just on a mechanical level, because each clan has different powers, and different vibes. So you can pick which clan you want. You need to pick your predator type. You need to choose. Let's look back at the character sheet. And then you need to pick out your powers, but they should all be detailed in your clan sheet.
Your clan, okay.
Yep. That's really all you need to know. And you I think the way it would work is we would probably introduce you I'm curious, if there's two angles you could go about it. You know your sire, and you're you know who embraced you. But if you it makes a lot of sense if you don't know who, because that's the thing a lot of vampires do. They just embrace and abandon their kids, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so otherwise I would just be hanging around all the time.
Right, so if you're what the you're just lost, right? Totally confused, what the fuck's going on? And then the rest of the coterie could find
adopt them, basically.
Essentially, and show you the ropes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think that does sound good. So yeah, I think then I'll just do whatever I need to know for mechanical stuff, and then whenever however much time comes, probably give me a hand, if able to, probably help fill out the character sheet if there's anything. I don't want to miss anything. I want to make sure. It seems like you're more familiar. I don't want to, but if the time comes. and I'm not as familiar. Tell me, fill it out.
Yeah, I think we can always. I think you're free to fill it out as you would like to, and I can just give it a look over. And then we can also have when we get the folks from Korea and Vic, we can have an actual session 0 and discuss
character creation session.
Yeah. You can plan out your character now if you want, but I guess connecting your characters, and we can talk about what we want out of the game.
Okay.
But I would also start thinking about, I guess, your character backstory, right? So, if you're gonna play as someone who has recently turned, really flesh out that human. What's their human life like? Since you recently got turned, are you still seeing people? Have you kind of ghosted everyone? What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
And I would try and think about specific relationships. Maybe you have a partner, maybe you have a brother, stuff like that. Friends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know when we can next meet yet. I think we'll have to wait until I think they're coming back pretty soon. And I think they were open to Logan and I assume Kai were going to come later this week. I can try and talk to them about when I can speak with them and when we can have a real session 0. But I'm hopeful. What does all of your availability look like with the holidays?
I'm free Sundays. I'm just free Sundays in general.
Same.
Sunday's really your day. Maybe not Christmas Eve. I can't imagine.
I'll be working Saturday.
Oh, not this Christmas Eve. You're right. I just forgot the found Saturday.
And maybe not.
Sunday.
Maybe not.
Oh yeah, New Year's and thing are both on. Huh.
Yeah.
I know.
Well, yeah, I guess this is the exceptions. You're right. This is the one time.
And also,
most days.
The awful things are I'm going to be out of country on the 7th and the 14th.
Yeah, New Year's Eve is on the 31st Sunday.
So I'm potentially not free on a Sunday for another month. But if there are any other days that you all could do before January 6th, I would be open to that, to have a session 0. Or we could really just text about it and then use the month to really think about, really delve into our characters. How do you all feel?
Okay.
I might have a schedule shift, so I'm gonna be busy for the next 3 Saturdays. But as far as weekdays go, I mean, no, I only work 3 days a week, so the days that I'm off, I can check in, see where everyone's at.
Okay.
Yeah, I only work 3 days a week as well.
Why don't we tentatively be open to, I guess next week after Christmas, or maybe the week after that? See when we have time. I could put a feeler out for it in the voting channel.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, thanks for the interest. I know this is definitely a pivot from the 5e.
It'll be a fun pivot though.
Yeah, looks interesting.
Yeah, I'm glad y'all are into it. All right. Well, I would do your homework in the meantime. I'll post those other podcasts in the info, and I guess we can be in texting and talks about it. If you all want to call me in the meantime, just give me a holler too, and I'm free to talk.
All right.
Okay. Sounds good. And I had one more question. What is a generation?
Oh yeah, that's very important. So I mentioned it's in the write up, but like, and if you watch back in the recording, you'll see. But essentially, a generation is like each time a vampire embraces the next, like embraces,
Mm-hmm.
the vampire they embraced is of one generation higher. Um, the first vampire being Cain from like Cain and Abel. Yep, and every like so he embraced like 3 people or so many people that made the second generation, and then there's the third generation, and their embraced people are the fourth, and so forth. And each generation is weaker than the generation that came before it.
Mm.
Essentially, though, like the longer a vampire is around, they keep getting stronger and stronger. It's just like they're kind of stronger by virtue of how long they've been around for.
Okay.
But so yeah, generally and there's kind of like it's rough, but there's like the core rulebooks denotes that players should really play as generations 10 through 13. And like vampires of generation 12 and 13 have probably been embraced within the last like 15 years. And those are Childer. Neonates are generations like 12 and 13 that have been embraced, that are a little older, or like, I guess younger. They've been embraced between 1940 until about 15 years ago. And Ancilli are really old vampires that from generations 10 and 11 that were embraced roughly from like 1780 to 1940. Like there's wiggle room, but that's like the general guideline. Like you should make your characters around one of those groups.
Okay.
There's also like Thin Bloods, which are generations 14 through 15 and 16, but like they're not like full vampires. Like their blood is so weak, and they're generally hated by kindred society. So I'm not letting any of you all play as one of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I'll keep doing my end, keep on reading up on stuff and plotting out some thoughts that I have, but please be in touch about any thoughts that you guys have going forward. Hope we can really get started pretty soon, you know?
Yeah,
once the holidays kind of subside.
Left. Going through the core rulebook, will that tell us like how to like many like skill points to assign?
Yeah, I was interested in that as well. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Like I would like. There's a whole chapter on character creation. If you all wanted to, you can. I'm totally happy if you, like I said, if you want to make your characters now, like as you have time, and I can just give them the look over. That would be great. I think that's page. Where is it? Characters is 135 in the core rulebook.
I have mine, and pretty much that is what I want to do. If you kind of like go over like the character creation, and that way Geo can kind of have a reference when he exists.
Yeah, that would actually be pretty. Yeah, to listen in on that.
Dope. All right, that sounds good. Yeah, and they talk a little about in character creation a little bit about the sex. They talk a little bit about that stuff.
Okay.
At least the difference between the Camarilla and the Anarchs.
Okay.
Which we're getting.
How many sects are there? Like 3, 2?
There's kind of there's like 3 major sects, which are like the Camarilla, the Anarchs, and the Sabbat, which is kind of basically not mentioned in the core rulebook. And I wouldn't really worry about the spot right now.
Got it.
You can also be a free agent, sort of, too, but it's like basically you're gonna get shut out from the other two clans if you are. I think I was reading.
Yeah, like, so most Anarchs are essentially free agents from the Camarilla that are, but it's very disorganized. And some of them are, like, trying to, like, make it like a sect, and some of them are just like, leave me the fuck alone. I don't want to have to do with anyone. And certain clans are correlated with different sects, but I wouldn't worry about that too much. Just pick what you think is fun.
I definitely know where I want to start with it. So it's character summary. So how do you want to start? I have, like, for Chronicles, Vesper, I just put a random name in for Sire. For Concept, the Thespian Spy. Ambition, to be famous. Desire, to be loved. Predator, Osiris. Clan, Toreador. And Generation, I think I was going to go with 11. So being Anselite.
My only thought about that so far is you might want to clarify be very specific with your ambition. I would say.
Okay, so what I was thinking first, like, basically kind of what I had in mind, we talked about earlier, the character I have in mind is, like, when they return, they were like an actor, and they would live that life. They'll live that life for a little bit, and then they'll have to pull away from society so that no one, recognizes that they don't age.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a very short window where they kind of start from the ground floor to become just the most famous they can be and try to soak up the most admiration. That's kind of like their ambition each time before, like, they go back, underground or like fake a death or something like that. And they come back. When they come back, it's like, oh, a new person, a new identity in the public spotlight. And their ambition is to become just dominate, whatever field they choose, which is usually like acting or, in this case, I'm not sure, maybe like either like a social media star or something like that, and just be.
That could be pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking they were a part of the Camarilla until the whole no technology thing, because they knew they wouldn't be able to be famous unless they had technology, so they pulled away from that Camarilla to join the Anarchs.
Mm-hmm.
Was kind of how I was seeing that. So just basically kind of starting out as like maybe like an influencer or something like that, who's coming up, not quite there yet.
Social media.
Yeah, but like the more powerful or more famous they get, the more pull. Because I picked Osiris for Predator, so the more, like, the larger the pull for their feeding ground because they have more fans.
I think another thing to be considerate about is definitely, like, the older generation you are, like the older the vampire, like, kind of like power, like the longer you've been alive, like the power really does accumulate. So, I don't
mind.
I would definitely.
Like,
or I'm sorry.
Even though they're older, like the way I kind of see it is like they only have brief windows of activity before they like go underground, and like they never leave their house for like 100 years or 50 years or something like that. So I don't mind playing it as like a younger, weaker generation. So just as the sake of everyone starting kind of off on the same foot. I just kind of like a flavor thing. I thought that was very interesting. Kind of like they might not be as learned as, a younger vampire who's constant, within the kin scene.
I see what you mean. Like you're it's kind of on a whim. Like sometimes you every so often you try and really get get big.
Yeah, just because they have their desires to be in the spotlight and be as famous as possible. So when they withdraw from that spotlight, they have to go fake their death, go underground, and not be seen by anyone for 100 years, 50 years until people forget about them. So basically, the person would be in their shuttered house for 50 years, just kind of in hiding until they feel like it's okay to come back out and rejoin society.
I see what you mean. And this is a period where your character is coming out again.
Yeah, pretty much.
That sounds like it could be pretty compelling. That could be pretty interesting. I think I would just think about how specifically, the specifics on what industry or what avenue you want to get big.
If we're doing nowadays, I think definitely an influencer would be a really fun idea to just because that's pretty much where all the power and fame is nowadays.
That'd be sick.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool.
And so I guess thinking about doing errands for or going on quests, so to speak, doing things around the city, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does that
further
your goal? How can that further just is it about the money for you to increase your production value, or?
Yeah, could be about money, or also if we're in, because you still have to play by vampire rules, so maybe getting favors from different vampires so that vampire who may work for this company can endorse me, or furthering my career through, because it's all about connections too, so maybe gaining connections to further their career.
Okay. Yeah, I like the sound of that. I would just definitely think about I would say generations 10th and 11th are definitely very established. So I know you going underground and stuff is your thought. I would definitely say think about just how you would justify that. But otherwise, I think that sounds pretty good.
As far as traits, allocation, the vampire. Where am I? That's the wrong thing. Okay, so starting the character creation part of it. Clan and sire, attributes. Okay, take the attribute. Okay, so it's to take one attribute at 4, 3 attributes at 3, and 4 attributes at 2, and 1 attribute at 1.
Right. So you pick through all those traits.
Okay, so I definitely need 2. So it's, what was I say, 4, 1 and 4, 3 for 3, 4 for 2, and 1 for 1. Okay, so
I would say, looking at the attributes, you know where it says there's strength, manipulation, and intelligence, resolve, all that.
Right.
So, if you look at the way it's spread, I would think about the social and the mental stuff. I would think about them in categories, right? So strength, physical strength is the same thing, is the equivalent to social charisma, right? It's the brute force, right? So you have your physical strength, your brute strength, your brute sociability, and then your brute mental capacity, right? Is your intelligence.
I think this character would definitely need more social and mental than physical by far. So I don't see them being very physical. So I think I would put the 4 into manipulation. 3 into charisma, composure, and wits. And then I get, what is it again?
And a quick question. Where it says concept, that's not a list, something you pick from. That's just something you think of.
That's something like that's your concept, yeah.
That's like what this character kind of is gonna do. Okay.
Right. What's their deal? Yeah, and Zach, I don't know like how many like followers, I guess so to speak, you want to be on or have with your social media empire, but if you are playing as an older vampire, you probably have enough connections in the social scene, like the media scene, that you could probably pull ahead, like, and already be at like a lot of followers. Maybe not number 1, but you could already have like a lot.
I might change it then, because I don't want to be so far ahead. Like, I want them to be kind of like, kind of just starting out and coming up a little bit as we play. So I kind of like that. Like, I don't want to be already established, so I might bring it down to like 9th or 8th generation.
It's the other way around, so it'd be like 12th or 13th.
Alright, yeah. 12th or 13th. So I'll probably do 12th.
Okay.
First generation, no.
Yeah, first generation. I'm Kane.
I am Kane.
Oh my god.
Okay, so here's what I have as far as the traits go. So I've got 1 in strength, 2 in dex and stamina, charisma 3, manipulation 4, composure 3, intelligence 2, wits 3, and resolve 2. Did I do that right?
I think that sounds about right. You have your 4s, your 3s, your 2s, and your 1.
Yeah, I've got 1 for 4, 1 for 1. I've got 4 with 2, and 3 with 3.
That sounds right.
I think that's... Yeah. Okay, so as far as the willpower and the health pretty much stay the same. Like, how do you get more willpower or health? Go to Fire the Masquerade.
I believe, okay, your health is determined by... Let me pull it up. There's a formula.
Yeah, I'm looking. Health equals stamina plus 3.
Right.
Willpower equals composure plus resolve. So let's look at those real quick. Because my composure is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that's right. That's 5 total.
And the health is your stamina plus 1?
Yeah, I think I might have to take away from my health. Let me look, yeah, because it's health equals stamina plus 3. So no, that's about right, because I have 2 in stamina, so I think that should put me at 5.
Wait, which one is your one? What's your stat with that has 4?
My stat that has 4 is manipulation.
Oh, I only see 3 there.
It says 4 on my end. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Weird. Okay. That's just how Roll20 is, I think.
And then my 1 is strength. So the willpower, I don't have to subtract. I can just leave it as the base. Cool.
I think the desire, I'm just looking at your sheet. Desire is like definitely like season, like in the chapter-based stuff.
Okay.
Or like very short-term goals. So like
I just put something there. So
okay, yeah, no, you're good.
Like I was just putting stuff in.
Yeah. An egg chicken sandwich.
An egg chicken sandwich. And then I threw up. Is there a thing where you eat human food? Don't you like have a violent reaction?
Oh yes, you can't eat human food. Yes, you will expel it. Like you can't. You can try. Like there's something you can do called the blush of life. Like to get, because you normally look dead. Or you look like cold and pale and pallid.
but you can like, and your body is dead. You can use the blush of life to like manually flush blood through your capillaries and like appear human looking,
More lively.
more lively. But like, and that's a thing that's like you can only do that if you have higher humanity. Like, you lose that ability once your humanity gets too low. Like, I think only humans, like if you have humanity 10, can you actually enjoy sex like normal. Mm-hmm. There's like different things like that. But as far as the food goes, I think you even at humanity 10, you can kind of enjoy food. But like any lower than that, like yeah, you're gonna have a violent reaction. Though you can like for social appearances, you can like force it down for like a little
bit. Okay. What's next? Skill. Okay, pick one skill distribution.
How much humanity do you start with? 5 usually, or is that also depend on something?
Usually you start at 7. If you are of the generation 10 or 11, you start with only 6 though. At base. But when you do character creation, you can like give up, like you could like sell off some of your humanity. Or like, I'm even okay if someone wants to use some of their stat points to like buy humanity.
Really?
Maybe not the stats, but like there's a
skills.
There's a formula. There's a formula. Yeah, like an XP formula that you can like use.
Is there anything like in game narratively that we can do to like gain humanity?
Doing good deeds. You know,
doing good.
Like, if you do something that merits it, you could gain your humanity. But, like, it's kind of like an exponential sort of thing. It's like, you have to do, like, really good deeds to get, like, really high humanity. It will probably, for most of you, it'll wax and wane, like, a little. Mm-hmm. You'll be forced into situations where you have to maybe break convictions.
That'll be fun.
Of course. I mean, that's life, ain't it?
Yeah. Right. Let's consider it's unlife in this case, I guess. For
True.
Skills, I think we could go with... You need to pick Jack of all trades, which is 1 skill at 3, 8 skills at 2, and 10 skills at 1. Balance, 3 skills at 3. 5 skills at 2, 7 skills at 1, or Specialist, 1 skill at 4, 3 skills at 3, and 3 skills at 2, 3 skills at 1.
Yep, at Humanity 10, you can eat, digest, and taste food as if you were human, amongst a bunch of other benefits. There's a lot of stuff, yeah. Also, did I tell you guys about Diablerie yet?
At what?
What?
Okay, there's a couple of like game features you should keep on your radar. One of them is Diablerie, which is like a big no-no, like in the vampire world. It's like a cardinal sin, essentially. That you if you got caught with it, you could like the Camarilla could sentence you to the final death. It's like a sin, but it's basically you can steal another vampire's soul, and like you can steal their soul and gain some of their powers. And if they're of a lower, like an older generation than you, you can go up like you can go down a generation.
What if it? Can you? Is it still a mortal cardinal sin? Even if you're like being a part of a blood hunt?
Oh, a blood hunt. I mean, if you are blood hunted, you would need express permit. You would need basically permission, by the prince, and even then, it would still be like a big social taboo.
Okay.
But so I mean, it definitely happens, but it's like secret. Like people like are vampires have a lot of secrets. I will say that everyone has their secrets. But yeah, you can and you can gain power and blood potence by like basically. It's a very violent thing, but like you lose a humanity point when you do it, and you risk like you have to roll to see if you lose a second any additional humanity points as well.
Oh wow. Okay.
And then you like hear them in your head still, like they're like a voice in your head.
Good so.
Something weird.
Also, you can make ghouls. Like you can let mortals feed on drink your blood, and they become enthralled to you. Like they're your servants, your slaves.
Thing.
And you can also blood bond with other vampires, which is like basically like letting someone drink your blood is kind of like a power move. So like if you drink another vampire's blood, you start to like become more empathetic to them. Like you basically get kind of like manipulated to like be their to naturally like them more. So another thing to consider, another game mechanic to consider.
That's if you let them, or that's in general if your blood is ingested by another vampire, or does it have to be like?
It has to be it's willful, so it's like.
Got it.
You have to let them. But
got it. So like, if a vampire saw like a bag of blood, didn't know, that wouldn't cause that same effect. Like hypothetical scenario.
Correct.
Got it.
Or it would be like it's willful for like the person's blood. So like it's not important that I guess that the person drinking it, like I guess if like it's like a gray area, but like yeah, in theory someone could be poisoning, like subtly putting their own blood in like a blood bag and like subtly kind of poisoning another vampire to be positioned towards them. It's like willful of the vampire whose blood is being
drank.
Right. So like you could force your blood onto another vampire, like drink my blood.
That's interesting.
It's a power.
That is really interesting. Yeah.
But also,
especially the poisoning one.
I mean, you want to be careful not to get drained because a vampire can kill you by. That's what diablerie is. Is like letting someone drink you down to the last drop.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you steal their souls. You know. But also, another mechanic to consider. I mentioned torpor. Are you familiar with that, Gio?
I mean, I know the word, what it means. It's like a kind of exhaustion kind of thing. Like, in real life, I know what that word means, but I don't know what it means in the game.
Right, so, like, if you take so much damage, like, before you instantly die, like, depending on the situation, you'll enter into a state of torpor.
Okay.
Where you're, like, comatose. And you can be put into torpor in addition to just taking so much damage. You can be wooden staked. And getting staked by wood in the heart will put you into, staked by wood will put you into torpor. Yeah. And
okay.
Vampires also are the sunlight is what. Sunlight kills them, fire kills them, and vampires can't die from extreme cold because they're dead, but they can still suffer frostbite and like lose body parts that have to be healed, Or like they could slow down and like enter torpor if they freeze solid. Decapitation also kills a vampire.
Got it.
Yep.
A question.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm filling in my bonuses for my Predator. It says gain 1 dot of blood sorcery, which is Tremere only, but the or presence. I don't know where presence would be, or what a dot of. What does that mean? Gain 1 dot of presence.
Wait, this is for what again? Gain 1 dot of presence.
Because if you choose a Predator type, you get like special bonuses. Like one was that I got an extra in performance or occult.
Presence is a vampiric discipline. It's one of your powers.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's right. I think that is part of a.
It's one of your clan power. Or like if you don't, even if you didn't have that power, like you could gain that discipline even if you weren't of that clan. Like if you were an Osiris, but you were a Nosferatu, you could get a point of that power.
I think that is one of the Toreador powers.
Yeah, so you could just make that even stronger.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
There's also a mechanic called Blood Surge, where you can if you make a rouse check, like tempt the beast, like tempting to increase your hunger, you can add a number of dice to a dice pool, depending upon your blood potency. So, like, you could most of you will start at blood potency 1. If you're like 10th or 11th, you might have blood potency 2. And so when you make a rouse check, you can add that many a number of dice into your dice roll, just to give yourself better odds.
Disciplines, aspect, celebrity, and presence.
Or I guess blood potence 1, you add 2 attribute dice to your blood dice pool when you blood surge. But at blood potence 2, you add another one. You add 3.
Do I all 3 of the disciplines, or do I have to choose one discipline? And let me go back to.
Let's see.
Go back to the character creation. Nope, not it.
I think like you have options. Like you can always buy points in any of the disciplines as you gain points. Okay. I guess.
Okay. So then I can choose one and then get one due to the Osiris Predator thing.
I think you start with multiple though. Hold on.
Disciplines. Oh, I skipped over that accidentally. Choose 2 of your clan disciplines. Put 2 dots in one and 1 dot in the other. Unless you're a catif character, choose any 2 disciplines. Put 2 dots in one and 1 dot in the other.
And you can always buy that third discipline that you didn't have down the line.
But with this, I could choose the other 2 and then gain that other one through my Predator. Would that be okay?
Right. Yep.
Okay.
So you could have 2-2, or you could have 3-1.
Yeah, I think it looks up to like 2-1-1.
Or you could have 2-1-1 as well.
Yeah. So you have to choose disciplines. Choose 2 of your clans. Put 2 dots in one and 1 dot in the other. Yeah, and then I get 1 for free with my Predator. Okay. presents. Free. Oh, you're not popping up.
Hmm.
Okay, I'm gonna stop recording now. I think we're pretty good.
Mm-hmm.